Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Angry Cast and Fallout Shelter 2022. How y'all doing? We're doing what we're doing, and we're still doing it, and doing it, and doing it well, I hope. We're going to do some quests, and because we are, of course, I'm still recording in my car on the way back and forth to work, these are applied later, and we will do the quests in the foreground while you listen to me dribble, drozzle drum, time for this one to come home, on in the background about pretty much anything. Actually, I do have some important, thank you GPS for redirecting. You're going to hear that a lot in the background. I would like to talk about something that I think is very, very important. I'm trying to figure out a way to present the information from my head so it makes sense. I know what I want to say, and I hope that you can follow along and make sense of the madness that is my brain. I want to talk about time, and I want to talk about your time. Your time is important to yourself and other people. If you're a kid, you pretty much have just time to yourself, for the most part. I mean, coming from a place of privilege, I may be able to say that some people can't. If this was 100 years ago, your time would be in the labor workforce in some sort of a factory or sweatshop where you'd be subjected to poor conditions and possibly put your life in danger, all for nothing but a paper with a little bit of money on it written on it that says, "Good job, here you go. Don't spend it all in one place." But the 20th century on, childhood is a time where you can just do what you want. Now, I made a slight miscalculation raising Bailey, and I think I did that to my detriment and to hers as well. I wanted her to be aware of what's going on around her in her life, the experiences that she has, to understand that live in that moment. You are a child. You have so many opportunities in front of you. Don't lose focus on what's happening around you. Keep those memories, because when you get older, you want to look back fondly on them. And that awareness, I think, became self-awareness, became hyper-awareness, and she sort of grew up way too fast and didn't really have a childhood the way I did, or the way other people. And she came from a better place of privilege than I did growing up. But, anxiety, I think, set in, and other things set in, and it became a problem to understand what's going on around you. And when she gets older and has to go out into the workforce, it could become a problem if she doesn't manage her time and other people's expectations of what her time is. And that's what I want to talk about. So let's take this back a little bit to when I was in my 20s and just out of college. At the age of 23 and being out of college, I had a couple of jobs before I got sort of rooted into the workforce. I was a temp worker for a manufacturing plant that made big screen TVs. I put the mirrors in the back back in that day, 1998. Big screen TVs were rear projection, where it shot out of a thing, hit a mirror, and then bounced back against the screen. And the mirrors, I broke about 3 of them, so I'm still working off that bad luck. But I think I'm out of the woods on that. Well, but it doesn't feel like it. But the expectation was that I was a temporary worker from a temp agency. I didn't have a full-time job there. I worked 40 hours a week, and I think at that point, I think they charged you $11 to the company for the temp worker, and you made about $7.70 as the temp worker yourself. So I was doing pretty good, maybe a little less than that, I'm not sure. But the idea being that the temp agency charged a certain amount to the company, and then they kept the overhead, and you kept a fraction of it. Maybe better than majority of the fraction, but a percentage of it. But you see where I'm going. The problem was that I was being paid $7 an hour to put big screen TVs together. The other people who were working there full time, who had invested benefits into the company, who got perks from working full-time in the company made a lot more. And it became somewhat of a not a point of contention, but somewhat a point of disagreement when we were flat out told by people who had full-time status that we should be working harder so that we can get our numbers up in order to make, quotas. To which I didn't say it, but in my mind thought, well, wait a second. How does that benefit me? I get paid the same amount whether I put out one TV today or I put out 100. You all get an incentivized bonus for putting out more TVs than that. You put out one, you get X amount. You put out 100, you put X plus 100, and whatever that incentive is. So them talking to me and saying, "Hey, you need to do this. You need to work harder. You need to." It's for them, not for me. And yeah, I am a company loyal person if the company respects me, and if there's a mutual road there of respect. But I'm not going to just sit there and say I'm going to throw everything I have into a company that doesn't care whether I do it at 0% or 100% from a compensation standpoint, only from a profit standpoint. I worked there for about a month, and I was starting to go towards a different path. I wanted to be a bartender at that point, and went to work in a banquet department for a hotel. Now I was making $6 an hour. At the same exact time, there was a Buffalo Wild Wings opening up across the street, and I got hired there too at $3 an hour as a bartender. $3 an hour plus tips, and then I would have to do some serving, or $6 an hour as a banquet bartender, and tips weren't really something that you were going to expect or rely upon, but they could happen if you were good enough. So guess which job I took? I already said which one I was, but I took the job working at the hotel. And there was nothing better than leaving a hotel on a Friday or Saturday night at 2 a.m., coming home in my cater waiter outfit with the black vest and the bow tie and the tuxedo shirt, and stopping at the ATM and depositing close to $100 in tips. At the age of 23, that's pretty damn good, I think. But there's also another expectation of that time that we're talking about. I was expected to be there to bartend, set up, tear down, do whatever, and then when my time was done, I went home. And I didn't have a set work schedule of I'm working Monday through Friday, Saturday and Sundays off. No, I worked a schedule of 5 days throughout the week or when I was needed. And I was compensated for that. But the times that I was off, that was my time. And that was for me to do it. And I never answered the phone on my day off. Now, to give you an idea of what we're talking about here, 1998, 99, 2000, and 2001, I didn't have a cell phone. I lived at home with my parents. We didn't have caller ID. We had the phone on the wall with the long-ass cord that you could strangle somebody with or reach the other side of the county with to talk to someone. If it was my day off and the phone rang, I didn't answer it. And I kind of told my parents, look, on my day off, I'm not home. Find out who it is, and I'm not home. Take a message. Because it happened on more than one occasion where somebody else who's scheduled for that day called off or got sick or just, one too many flu and can't make it into work. And because I was an adult, I was in my 20s, I wasn't in my teens, and I identified more with the older ladies that I worked with who were like retirees that came back to work at a banquet facility, and I had a little bit more discipline about my work than somebody that could go get all busted up at the night before and then may or may not care about rolling into work drunk or high or whatever. So because I was perceived as being an adult and disciplined and responsible, it's like we'll call you to come in on somebody else's day that they screwed up and you don't get the day off. So then I would end up working 6 days a week. Now, again, respectful of time. That's where we are talking about today. My boss called me and says, hey, this person called off, can you come in? And I'm like, well, it's my day off. Like, yeah, I know, but I really need you. And it got to the point where the conversation wasn't threatening, but there was a perception of I needed to do this if I wanted to keep my job or have good standing with the hotel. And that disturbed me a little bit. That disturbed me that I had no power in this situation. Not part of a union, hourly employee, can easily be replaced. They can find 5 more people that'll take my job for less money and just rotate through them. The turnaround wasn't it wasn't something that we didn't all notice. We had a lot of people go in and out of that, come in for a paycheck and then leave. So that became something that I was very aware of, that I was being taken advantage of, because it's my time off, my time to recoup and relax and spend time with my family or myself or do what I want to do. And that was being robbed of me. And it's not, I don't want to sound like a prick, because, there are people out there saying, well, you should just do your job and shut up and whatever else. You're there to work and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but I wasn't there to work. It was my day off. I worked already 5 days that week. You're going to pull me in for 6. I'm going to have, by day 7, I'm going to be dead tired, not be able to do anything, and then come back to work, and I'm not going to be happy. It's going to drive down the morale, and my performance is going to suffer, and then you're going to be unhappy anyways. So then, I left that job, not because of those things. I actually worked my way up into banquet captain position, and had more money and a little bit more clout, but still I was doing a hell of a lot of work because other people were standing around doing nothing, and it got irritating to me. So I got an opportunity to become a customer service rep. And that customer service rep job pretty much doubled my initial pay. I was making $12 an hour as a customer service rep, talking to people on the phone about medical devices, placing orders for companies, for durable medical equipment dealers, and sales reps for those DMEs, and hospitals and stuff. And it came with it a lot of responsibility to understand how pricing worked and everything else. And it was not something that you could have done without having some skill and experience and wisdom and basic understanding of the way things work in the world. And to that end, though, I was now in that position of saying, listen, if we do good, I do good. The company does good. But it wasn't from a point of making other people work harder without being compensated. I think we were all in a good spot for that. But then things didn't last. But I had my weekends off. And they actually incentivized coming in a day after a holiday or a day that we were normally off. So there was a lot of perks to that. And now that might be because I moved from a service food service industry to a customer service industry, to a different type of industry. But it was more the management in that sense. And that's why we see a lot of problems today with, there's such a disconnect on the job market and the expectations of employees and employers, to which we say, well, there's jobs out there, just nobody wants to work them. Well, that's not necessarily true. Yeah, there is an element of laziness, there's an element of entitlement, there's an element of just plain selfishness, but there's also an element of greed. When an employer says, I don't know why anybody doesn't want to work, we're paying people $5 an hour, we're paying people $1 above minimum wage. Well, that's your problem. It's like, people know what their time is worth. People know what they can do and what they should be paid, and they're not going to come work for you if they don't feel that they're being compensated correctly, especially in a place where that may be dangerous to work for whatever reason, whether it be the conditions you're working in from the job's perspective or the conditions you're working in because of a global pandemic happening. It doesn't matter. Here's another example for you. While I was working as that medical manufacturer, a buddy of mine had opened up his own business. He had gotten an MBA and decided to open up his own business with his wife locally, to have somewhat of a child care business, like preschool, daycare, whatever, what have you. And, good for him for finding a niche and filling it. And he asked me, he's like, listen, we're doing an open house to promote the business and all that, and we're going to have concessions and all that, and we need somebody that can run a cotton candy machine. I said, well, hell, I used to run a cotton candy machine when I was 9 and 10 years old at the stadiums when I was growing up, because my parents were belonging to a service organization that ran the concessions for football games at our high school. So I know my way around, a Wonder Gun, whatever, from being a bartender. I know my way around a popcorn machine. I know my way around a cotton candy machine. He's like, oh, that's great. How much, I would compensate you for coming out and doing it. How much do you think? I told him flat out $100. He's like, what are you talking about? I said, listen, I make X amount of dollars per hour working at our job that we both work at. And this is my day off. And so you're going to ask me to come there for this X amount of hours, and I'm going to expect what I get paid at my job for Y dollars. Because that's my time. That's my time off. I'm giving up my free time on the weekend away from work to do something for you, and you're asking if I could, you're telling me you're going to compensate me, then fine, you're going to compensate me my time. And he says, you've lost your coconuts $100 to work for 4 hours, making cotton candy for people. I said, you're taking me away from my family. You're taking me away from the things that I need to get done on the weekend that I can't do during the week because I'm working. That is the compensation for my time. And it pissed him off a bit, but I think, quite frankly, he was a little bit mad that he was getting taken for a ride. Because he figured I would be, just out of the goodness of my heart, help him out because we're friends. I mean, yeah, we were friends, but this was business. If he had just said, hey, you want to come down and do something like that, I'd been okay, fine, sure, maybe. But the fact that he was going to compensate me for it, I'm like, well, that changes the dynamic altogether. Because then I realized he was willing to pay me. How much was he willing to pay me, though? And I found out real quick. And that was not only an experiment in telling him what I'm worth, that's also an experiment in telling me how much he thought I was worth. So, there's a lesson for you. I didn't do it, by the way. And we're not really friends anymore, but there's other reasons for that. But these are the types of things that, as a person going out into the world and getting into the workforce, you should be aware of. You should be ready to set that deadline, that guideline. Now, I know when you're sitting in an interview, maybe it's your first job, maybe it's a big job, maybe you haven't worked in a while and you're happy to get this job. You kind of sort of oversell your enthusiasm to do the work for whatever they're going to pay you. And then once you get in, you kind of find yourself in a situation saying, well, I kind of shot myself in the foot because now I'm not making what I could be making, and I'm making what they're willing to pay me, and now I have no bargaining power. But you do. And it's hard to move from job to job, especially in a position where you may not have been able to cleanly move from one job to another without having to, all right, you know what, fuck. I'm trying to change lanes and nobody's going to let me in here. There we go. Sorry. This is the full package you get from me. Me swearing at traffic and me talking about compensating you as your time. So yeah, it's I kind of lost the thought. We'll pick it back up. Hold on a second. I'm getting in there. Don't worry. No, but when you want to move from one job to the next, it's hard. It's scary. Do I want to put my life into an upheaval? Change my work-life balance? Am I going to like the people I work with? I don't know them. I've gotten used to the people I'm working with. I've gotten used to the management here. I know what to expect. I know what not to expect. And then changing to a different job, that throws everything out the window and we're going to be compensated for it. I went through that working my last job. I worked for an IT department as a business systems analyst. And basically that meant I would talk to the customer, who was our internal customer, meaning the end users and the business users. And they would say, I want the button on here to be blue. And it's currently orange. And I would say, okay, here's what you want it to look like. This is what you want it to accomplish. And then I would take that and translate that into some sort of request for programmers to change the button. And then we would go through testing, and then that would get pushed into what's called a sprint, and that would get pushed into development and put into production, and then everything was fine, and everybody got their blue button, and it was wonderful. It was a hard job. It was a good job, and I was being compensated pretty decently at that point. I was making less than I was previous than that, because I had spent 9 months riding my couch unemployed because the job before that went away. Not that I lost my job. The job itself was lost, not me in it. It was eliminated. It wasn't a performance issue. It was an issue of money that they couldn't compensate me anymore. So I had taken this another job as a business systems analyst in order to make ends meet, and I was losing my mind because I had to get up extra early, drive just as far, pay for parking, walk 3 blocks, get on the light rail, take that across town, get off, walk another block, and then up, and then do my job, and then come. And it wasn't fulfilling to me. It wasn't that I was unhappy with the company. They were pretty damn good. It's just it wasn't the kind of job that I know I can do and I'm good at, and it wasn't going to be something I was going to be fulfilled with. And I got offered the chance to take the job that I have now, which is an incident manager, meaning that when something breaks, it's up to me to make sure it gets fixed, whether it's to be me doing it or I get the other IT teams on it, and we communicate and we collaborate and we coordinate and get it all done. And it was scary to think that, hey, I've been unemployed for 9 months and I'm going to go to this other job. I just don't know if it's something I want to do. And I wanted to get away from the city. I didn't want to have to be downtown. I wanted to recoup some of that lifetime, not having to drive and work late hours and be downtown and all that stuff. But it was a guy that I knew and a guy that I trusted. And he's like, look, it's a dumpster fire, but you're going to love it. And I said, well, okay. And I talked with them and we had a discussion, and it seemed like a logical fit. The job seemed like a logical fit for me, and I really appreciated the candor, and the people that were interviewing me were awesome, and they still are. And then I saw how much I was going to be making, and I was like, yeah, you got me. Because they were compensating me for my time. Now, whether or not that compensation was within the boundaries of what that job pays in the market, I had never done it before, so probably it was better than I should have expected. And I love the job. I've been working at it now for over 3 years. I have tried to make so many improvements, and I think I'm finally seeing where I can make differences for them. And there are late hours. Sometimes I'm on the phone with a group of people for 12 hours or more because things are broken and we need to fix them. Sometimes I'm up late at night. Sometimes the weekend, some guy almost came in my lane. Sometimes I'm on weekend hours working as well. But that's okay because I'm being compensated for it. And my boss always tells me, look, I don't care how you do it, find some way to recoup your time. And I do. There are times when we're not doing much, and I'm still on the clock and I'm still responding to things, but I'm not proactively working because I'm recouping that time that I spent at 2 o'clock in the morning on a phone call because something broke. And that's what I'm telling you, is that you need to find that way to have your time be important to everybody. To your boss, to your family, and to yourself. Right now, I'm not having a great moment because my time is split between having to take care of the financial responsibilities of being the head of household or whatever, and just being the primary income, and make sure that we have all of our financial responsibilities met. And I'm struggling with that, with the fact that Megan has broken her arm, and we're trying to get out of the house that we're in and into the new house, but we can't because she has to convalesce, and we can't afford to just hire somebody right now to go and just move everything for us. And also because of her injury, having to take care of the dog, because the dog has needs and the other animals have their needs, and we need to make sure that the laundry's done, we need to make sure that the dishes are done, we need to make sure everything else is taken care of, and getting all that done. And I don't have an extra set of hands to help me because she's down one. But that's a temporary problem right now. I can handle this for a little bit, but it's taking away from other things. My sleep is one of them, the main one. The ability for me to just relax and maybe like decompress and watch something or play a game or read a book or do anything else because I'm constantly interrupted. I don't remember the last time I sat down and watched an hour of TV without having to stop 15 times and taking 3 hours to finish a 1 hour episode. But that is my choice, and that is a temporary problem that I have to deal with. To when we'll get back to normal in a few weeks when her arm is healed and she can assist and she can take on those other tasks that I don't have to, and then I get my time back. And that's how the game works. So you need to find out where in your life you can draw that line in the sand with people and make sure the expectations of this is what I'm willing to give you and this is what you're willing to give me, and have that at the negotiation table. Make sure you don't undersell your, what you're worth. Get your time back. Don't let anybody rob you of that. Now, there are times when you have to give it because it's needed. And depending on who that other, who's taking it from you, it might be an agreed upon arrangement. But don't let anybody steal it from you and not compensate you for it. It sounds like such a sterile and, unfeeling concept, but you need to set those expectations or you're going to constantly be at somebody else's beck and call. And that's where you break down mentally, emotionally, physically, motivationally, everything. You lose that spark. You lose that fun. You lose that will to do a good job and overperform and be exemplary because you don't feel like you're worth it. Or like you don't feel like they feel you are worth it. So, it's just a little food for thought. We went along a little extra than I wanted to, but it should be okay. So, with that being said, I'm going to give you back about 2 minutes of your time from half an hour, maybe. And we will see you next time. Have a good one. Talk to you later. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Take care of the planet. And come back later and we'll do this again. Have a good one. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.